You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/kidsandfamily. Just go to Indeed.com/kidsandfamily right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Hello, this is Aaron West. I am the author of the A24 New Wave. In this book, I look at A24's output and I make the argument that we are in a new wave movement right now. A24 plays a major role. This book has a supplemental podcast where each episode is a brief conversation about an A24 related topic, whether an actor, director, or even a genre. As I continue research for the book and conduct interviews, I expect to record podcast episodes with people involved with the company. You can find the podcast at cinejourneys.com or wherever you find podcasts, and we are proud to be members of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Dark Destinations.
These may be end times, night creature. Why would a few more casualties trouble me?
Because their blood will join yours.
A radio drama anthology.
You are wrong.
How you figure? Every merc on Mongo is hunting you down.
Not you. Your partner. He said I didn't have a ray gun.
Full cast performances set in the haunted corners of the globe.
Darkness is coming for you. Aye, that's the fear that haunts me. Sleep!
Dark Destinations by Father Malone at weirdingwaymedia.com. Weirding Way Media.
The soundtrack to a movie is an art form unto itself. It can enhance the visuals, serve as a commentary on the action, and deepen the viewer's connection to the film. From the legendary compositions of John Williams and Ennio Morricone, to the carefully curated soundtracks of Quentin Tarantino and James Gunn. Their formats are varied, but they are all created in service of the story they are helping to tell. Some might even take on a separate life apart from the movies. Tonight, on Noise Junkies, Movie Soundtracks. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Noise Junkies. I am in the captain's seat this week. This is HP. With me, as always, to my right, my main woman, the cream to our coffee, Noise Junkie number 2. This is Heather Drain. Heather, say hi.
Hello, I am your Noise Junket, ladies and gentlemen.
To my left is the man I've known longer than most people in my life. He's the green-headed wonder. He is a man of mystery. He is Father Malone. Hello, Father Malone.
Hey, fellow Noise Junkies. Happy to be here. Happy to be anywhere, honestly.
It's probably, it's going to be hard to say whether we are music fans first or movie fans first. So this is kind of the intersection of our the things we're most passionate about, at least in my case.
Not me, it's movies, but yeah, continue.
First thing we do, we lead off every show with a little bit of show and tell, the things that we're all listening to this week. It can be an album, it can be a particular artist, a song. Heather, why don't you start? What are you listening to this week?
Oh my goodness. One of the most amazing musical discoveries that I have made in the past few months is a band from Italy called Devil Doll. And holy shit, like it's a band, but the main creator is the mysterious figure of Mr. Doctor, which is a tribute to Jekyll and Hyde. This is like, if I have never heard music that has so seamlessly merged so many elements. I mean, there's parts of it that are very gothic, classical. You have a little bit of like Brechtian kind of I think it's like Sprechsunga, you know, the whole speak talk thing, very cabaret. Then it's like heavy metal, little bits of industrial, and especially the mysterious Mr. Doctor is also a huge fan. It's all over the various album art of classic silent horror as well as early talkies. There's a lot of tributes to like Conrad Veidt and Todd Browning and Murnau. And so this is obviously a band after my own heart. I don't know how I have made it this far in my life and not really be that familiar with them until recently. And I have a writer named Thomas Clark, I think, who did an article on them for a zine called Deserts of Hex. And oh my God, they've only released 5 albums, but and they are very out of print, but you can find everything on YouTube. The music is so powerful. Some people call it prog metal. I just call it Devil Doll. They're, to me, some of my most favorite bands are ones that basically, what is the genre? That band. Like, they defy genres and create their own sound that you can only call that band, that artist. So Devil Doll is my pick of the week.
That sounds great. Is it like tongue in cheek, or are they deadly serious? Like, because you mentioned a lot of different homages and influences.
I wouldn't necessarily call it tongue in cheek. I mean, it's very much like, kind of in a way, sort of like floating through a sea of at times sort of like of insanity. The man behind Mr. Doctor, which this was found out just like, I think, a few years ago, is actually an attorney by trade and has a degree in psychology. And so some of the inspiration behind some of the songs were like based on actual cases he was working on.
And Miss Father Malone, how about you, sir? What's getting you through the week?
Well, mine actually ties in with our greater theme this evening, in that I've been listening to quite a lot of Philip Glass, particularly the soundtrack to Koyaanisqatsi.
Gorgeous.
Nice.
Is a soundtrack that I tend to revisit at different portions of my life, and then listen to it a lot. And then I don't listen to it for quite some time. I actually have a Koyaanisqatsi story. When I was living in Los Angeles, I was a projectionist at a movie theater called the New Wilshire Theater in Santa Monica. And as part of my projectionist duties, it was a twin. We had 2 screens. Part of my duties was I got to program the non-sync music, the music that played before the movie. So I would try to theme whatever, and I didn't have, this is like 94, 95. There's no CD burners necessarily, so I can't make a playlist. I can just pick an album and put it in. And for one movie, I put in Koyaanisqatsi, mainly because I just wanted to listen to Koyaanisqatsi as much as possible. And particularly sitting in an empty theater on a movie theater sound screen and listening to music. There's no better way. Anyway, so I had it playing before the movie started, and I got a phone call in the projection booth from someone downstairs saying, "There's a customer here who'd like to speak to you." And I said, "Okay." And they gave him the phone, and he said, "Could you turn off this rather aggressive music?" And so now every time I think of Philip Glass, I think of it as rather aggressive music, but I don't think anything could be further. Anyway, that's what I've been listening to lately.
That's fantastic.
It's amazing. Philip Glass, the minimalist. I thought minimalism would never agree with me, but he made me. He converted me.
He did a song suite based around David Bowie's Heroes, which I keep trying to get into. It's one of those things I try it's tough for me because I love Bowie so much. It's hard for me to listen to something that's like a translation of what he does. But maybe I'll give it another try. You're inspiring me.
I adore that soundtrack. I had an art teacher in 11th grade that made me a taped copy of it.
Wonderful.
She was, yeah. If you ever listen to this, Miss Caraway, I love you.
The news came out that Daft Punk is putting out a 10th anniversary edition of their Random Access Memories album, which is my favorite Daft Punk album. I still think it kind of drives me crazy that it's been 10 years because I still listen to it. I pop it in every once in a while, and it still sounds as fresh as it did when I first listened to it. So that's been in my rotation this week. Super excited for all the extra music.
I needed a sound. I needed a click. I needed a sound. So we put the click on, and that became the rhythm.
That's Giorgio by Moroder. It's fantastic.
The dream was just so big at the time, This all ties in because we're going to be talking about Daft Punk. We're going to be talking about Giorgio Moroder, for fuck's sake.
We are, absolutely. So that's what I revisit it every once in a while, and it's on top of mind because I'm super excited about the new edition coming. I still revisit. They did that year. They were up for a bunch of Grammys, and they performed on the Grammys. I don't know if you guys have ever seen them perform.
Of course.
They performed. It was with Stevie Wonder, and obviously Nile Rodgers was there. It's still a clip that I revisit even to this day because it's so full of energy. It's an amazing performance. They incorporate Stevie Wonder's song "Another Star," which is it's an amazing segue, and just to see a whole room full of like stuffy Grammys dignitaries just get up and just enjoy the hell out of the song. It's really something. There's not too many performances in the Grammys that can live up to that kind of power. So that's what I'm listening to this week.
And they're robots.
And sadly they've long since broken up. But
hey, man, robots got to go do their own thing. They can't be tied up together. It doesn't have to be a binary system.
I can't believe it's been 10 years.
Yeah, that's sobering. I don't like that.
No, I don't either. I always wondered if they took a lot of influence from there was a band in the 70s, also from Europe, from France, called Space.
Yes, I'm familiar with Space.
Yeah, they're like their big hits, Magic Fly.
Yeah.
But if you look at the look that they had and the fact that, they were like a very cool, kind of slightly strange electronic band.
Interesting. I never would have made that connection, but you're probably right. To be honest, I don't even know what Space looked like. I just remember that album. I don't know where I came across it, but I remember that album being like really, really kind of out of left field for me and really, really digging it. I'll have to check out what they look like because obviously Daft Punk is French as well. It'd be interesting to see if there's a connection there.
Yeah, there's a really cool video, like an official music video for Magic Fly. It should still be on YouTube, but you can get like a good eyeful of the band. So.
You guys are full of great ideas tonight. I'm going to have to make note of this.
We're full of beans.
What makes a great film soundtrack? This is a broad question, but and at a 30,000 foot view, I'm going to pose the question to you guys. What do you think makes a great film soundtrack? Is it just that it has great synergy with the movie that it's pulled from or created with? Is it just a great collection of music that can work regardless of the visuals? What do you think? I want to start with you, Father Malone. What's your opinion on that?
The best kind of soundtrack is the one that's most appropriate for telling the story in the way the movie is attempting to. It's just as important as the costumes and the lighting. It should urge the viewer in the direction that the filmmaker is attempting to get you to. And in my mind, that means that the best kind of film music is the kind that doesn't call attention to itself like good editing. It should propel you in one way that the filmmaker's hoping to elicit, whether that be an emotion or any kind of reaction, without you noticing that you're being manipulated. Which doesn't mean that I don't like a big bombastic score, because I love a big bombastic score. And I guess what I'm saying is no one kind of film soundtrack is the best. It's whatever works for that thing. It can be, mechanical noises as a soundtrack, but if it works for that movie, then so be it. And I don't think the music needs to be able to stand on its own either. That's not a prerequisite. for it, but doesn't hurt.
Do you share the same, basic opinions with Father Malone? Where do things differ? Because I suspect you have slightly different opinions on what makes a great soundtrack.
Yeah, I have a feeling none of us are going to have the wrong answer, but I'm very biased, but I'm also right. So it all works out. But no, for me, like a truly great soundtrack is one, and this ties to kind of what you were saying, Father Malone, that is as integral a part of the film's fabric as the editing, the visuals, the emotiveness of it, the editing, all of that. A great, when a filmmaker knows how to integrate sound and do sound design, and that could be a piece of music or like you said, it could be just like almost like natural sounds, like mechanical sounds. It could even be like, I remember watching Marco Ferreri's, I think it's called The Seed of Man, where a lot of it's just weird, like different sounds just layered upon layers. So you almost get like at times like this white noise hum that's very like unsettling, but they're in a very desolate like future situation. So it's perfect. So to me, a great soundtrack does that. But also when I think of musical soundtracks, I think a truly great soundtrack is one that can also stand on its own as a piece of music. One that you could put on, on your computer, your Spotify, your iPod, your record player, even your boombox, and just revel in just the beauty of it as just a piece of music. Like you don't necessarily need the film with it either. To me, that is kind of what separates the boys from the men when it comes to soundtracks.
It's interesting because I know my what I thought made a good soundtrack, when I was younger, that definition for me has evolved. But I think because when you're a kid, you just a cool soundtrack is just something that gets you, that you can relive the movie through. Like the classic example for me as a child would be Star Wars. Like having that big black soundtrack on record as a kid, putting it on. This was a time before we could really like go out and rent a movie even, or buy a DVD or stream a movie. So for me, that was almost like owning the movie in a sense, because you could put that on and I could totally envision all the action that was happening. When you hear, the Imperial March, exactly what's happening in that moment. And it was kind of a nice way to bring you back into the movie, the world of the movie, I guess. But ultimately, I think a really great soundtrack, I mean, it's hard to talk in absolutes on this, but I think one of the things that it should do is really elevate what is already a great piece of artwork in other ways. You have, if it's filmed well, acted well, a soundtrack has that ability to really create an emotional elevation of the material, right? Think about a great soundtrack and how it can sometimes, just kick the knob up to 11, right? Make a real emotional sort of connection to the material more so. What about, can a soundtrack be successful even if the movie itself is a dud? We're talking a lot about how a good soundtrack makes a good movie great. But what if the reverse is true? What if you have kind of a so-so movie? Can you have a soundtrack that outpaces and outlives a dud of a movie?
Define what we're talking about here, HP, because are we talking about film scores? Are we talking about diegetic music? Or are we talking about non-diegetic music? Those are the types of film music that are available, everybody. Just for you listeners out there, if you're unaware, diegetic music in a film is music that the characters can hear. So that's like source music, stuff playing on the radio. Non-diegetic is music that only we hear as the audience, which would primarily be a film score, but can also be a song score, right?
So I'm going to break this out into in different terms, Father Malone. This was a tough concept to wrap our minds around.
Yeah.
We're looking at, composed scores, a la your John Williams, your Ennio Morricone's, so on and so forth, and your curated soundtrack collections that we'll be talking about, your Pulp Fictions, that kind of a thing. Where in the case of Pulp Fiction, it's very much diegetic, right? So the characters are hearing it because it's playing on the radio, but at the same time, it may also be commenting on the action on screen, sometimes in a very clever way. in terms of our discussion tonight, I'm breaking it out into composed scores versus curated collections. In those terms, let me get back to the question at hand. What about a movie that isn't so elevating on its own? Can a soundtrack have a life outside of that movie? And what examples can you come up with of such a situation? I can give you one off the top of my head. I think Tron Legacy is a fantastic soundtrack. The movie itself, not so good. But if you're going to talk about Tron Legacy, in my mind, I'm thinking about Daft Punk's score, not to bring it back to Daft Punk, but the score is phenomenal. The movie's a horrible letdown in that respect. What other examples can you guys come up with?
Some might say Xanadu, that ELO soundtrack to Xanadu is really good and that movie is bad. But I think the film and the music are pretty much on par. So not that one. But Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens. It is a great score for a very mediocre movie. I know some people, petty people, would say it's Phantom Menace, but Phantom Menace is a better movie than Force Awakens. And Force Awakens has a bit of music in it, Rey's theme that John Williams composed. The best thing he's composed in 20 years, easily, wasted on that film. Not necessarily that character. She's good. The character's good. And, what's her name is good in it. But that to me is a score that's way too good for the movie that it is.
I too thought about Xanadu, but that gets to be sort of thorny because a movie can be so bad. It's like bringing, for me, it's on a par with Grease 2. Grease 2 objectively is not a good movie, nor is it really a good soundtrack, but I love it. I love them both. I love them
Nor
both.
is Grease 1.
I love the movie Grease 2, and I love the soundtrack, despite the fact that I can objectively look at it and say this is not good filmmaking. Xanadu kind of fits into that category as well, which is why I didn't really bring it up as part of my spiel. But Heather, what about you? What do you think?
Well, before I go into my thoughts, I have to say there's a huge defense of Xanadu because I got 2 words for you guys: the tubes. Because the tubes are in Xanadu, and that's an awesome sequence where you're merging 40s and current day, and there's just a great sort of decadence about the tubes and that. And I mean, it's I'm gonna if you put the tubes in anything, I'm gonna fangirl, and that's just a fact. I'm not
That
saying
sequence is fantastic. I remember it as a kid watching that on cable. There is beautiful. I think decadence is there's a darkness and kind of, like a 10 or 11-year-old kid, 9 years old watching that. There's a lot of weird kind of creepy stuff happening in the background, but it's really fantastic in the way that it merges like the Zoot Suit kind of crowd with the new wave punk kind of crowd. It's fantastic. So yeah.
But I have another movie where the movie is mediocre and the soundtrack is fucking awesome. It's a score, which is the movie is Young Guns 2, which is a passable Western at best. But Alan Silvestri wrote the score for it, and it's very high on my list of favorite Western scores of all time. And the sad thing is the whole thing got overshadowed by a couple of songs by fucking John Bon Jovi.
Ew.
The absolute indignity. So people, when they think of that movie, if they think of that movie at all, they think the music might have been by John Bon Jovi. And what they're missing out is one of the best Western scores of all time. That to me is probably top of the list of bad movie, good score, because it's completely wasted on the film. Listen, so we're talking bad movie, good score. How about good movie, bad score?
I'm getting to that.
Ooh.
Actually. So So, all right, since you've introduced the topic, Father Malone, what's your pick?
There are a couple. If you've ever seen Ryan's Daughter, David Lean's film, it's about sort of rural Ireland. It's a period piece. Maurice Jarre gave him a score that is basically like a Carl Stalling soundtrack for a Warner Brothers cartoon. He was told not to do sort of traditional Celtic Irish instrumentation, and what he gave him instead was like a lot of boing kind of stuff. That's really bad. Not a lot of people listening to this probably would know that one, but they might know the movie Lady Hawk.
Oh, God, I love that. I love Lady Hawk.
Do you? Do you love the soundtrack to Lady Hawk?
No, I just love Rucker Hauer.
Oh, yeah, because Rucker Hauer was great. The soundtrack to that movie is so off-putting. It's just this isn't me railing against anachronism. Like, I can tolerate electronic instruments in a period setting. I think Legend with Tangerine Dream did in that movie, even though they were sort of late to the game. I think that soundtrack works fucking phenomenally with imagery like that. But there's something about the Lady Hawk soundtrack that just every time a music cue comes up in that movie, it reminds me I'm watching a movie and it's 1985 or whatever, and it's the worst for me. That's the worst. That's the most egregious example.
Is there a movie that you think is really great, but the soundtrack is a little questionable or even bad?
A soundtrack that I despised and a movie that I really enjoyed, which I think is a slightly different thing to judge it on. I was reminded of this because I did a show recently with Chris Stashew. We covered Forrest Gump. The soundtrack, it makes me angry now. It's such a lazy, boring collection of signpost songs that comment a little too on the nose with every scene that it appears in, right? So Forrest Gump is running in the desert. Why don't we have, It Keeps You Running by the Doobie Brothers? Or how about Running on Empty by Jackson Browne? They're having fun in Alabama. Let's play Sweet Home Alabama. I love Robert Zemeckis and I love the movie. I just think it's such a lazy way of signposting all of these different scenes and these eras that Forrest Gump lives through. And what really makes me mad is at the time that the movie came out, I was working, I was selling CDs at a Circuit City. And that was people could not get enough of the Forrest Gump soundtrack, the double CD soundtrack. That thing sold in numbers that still astonish me to this day, which tells me that people don't really care about the soundtrack experience. They just want what they know.
Here's where I take umbrage with this entire evening, because when you start talking about curated soundtracks, they actually branch off into two categories, which is the one you're talking about, which is the American Graffiti style. We're going to score every scene with a song. In the case of American Graffiti, incredibly thoughtfully done, where they sometimes seem to be commenting on the scene directly, but it's never like hitting you over the head like, he's choosing a suit and there's a song about choosing a suit or something. I don't know. That's not a real thing. But anyway, there's that. The other curated soundtrack. Now, this is the 1990s, this explosion of we're going to put 23 current songs onto a soundtrack. We'll cram them all into the credits of a movie in most cases just to sell CDs. But then starting, I think, with Until the End of the World, the Wim Wenders thing, where they got a bunch of alternative artists and said, hey, could you write a song about the end of the world? And they all did. That became that kind of a curated soundtrack. So there seemed to be a lot of those too, where like Judgment Night is another sort of big curated soundtrack where it's like, let's get these metal guys and these hip hop guys together and that'll be our soundtrack. So there were some of those, but then yes, there continued to be the Forrest Gumps of the world, the limping along, where it's just like, let's just jam a bunch of pop songs into a movie willy-nilly. And shame on Robert Zemeckis for being so goddamned obvious with every choice. We're going to Vietnam. Fortunate Son's going to start playing.
Okay, but it's like, to me, I think of that movie, it's like, everybody has that story where they've like accidentally shit themselves in some situation. And, you think of that and you're always like, oh God, that was awful on so many levels. That's, for me, that soundtrack and that movie merged with it. I mean, I'm sorry, fucking Leonard Skinner's Freebird, where she's perched on a windowsill like a bird. You get it? You fucking get it? I hate that. It makes me irrationally like upset. But no, it's lazy. It's just lazy, and it's inexcusable. You have all of that money for any kind of song rights, and that's what you go with. It's just, I don't like it.
What about movies that don't really have a soundtrack? That, like something like No Country for Old Men is a good example of a movie that really has no soundtrack. It's all just source sound from the scenes that everything is happening in. Or the other thing, I had to look this up, Network, as it turns out, has no soundtrack either. Can you guys think of any other movies where a soundtrack might have been too distracting? Like something like No Country for Old Men, it makes perfect sense why they wouldn't want to put a soundtrack in it, because it's such an intense experience, and the story that they're telling is, the absence of a soundtrack kind of keeps you in the moment, I think, and that's why I think it works so beautifully. But do you guys have any other examples or things you can think of where a soundtrack is kind of unnecessary to the movie, and it's maybe a choice that the filmmaker made not to have a soundtrack?
No.
Nothing?
I was about to say, wasn't and please correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm a little rusty. It's been a while since I've rewatched it, but I believe James Whale's Frankenstein, the original one, doesn't have a soundtrack. Please correct
no
me.
music
I know
at
when I
all?
took a film class in the university, this was a whole discussion. But again, that was a long time ago too, because I'm a Highlander. But sorry, but I don't know. I mean, I think no music. And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, like with sound design, like when Father Malone was talking about, like, you'll hear like, an industrial sound, or, just something that's going on in the scene is like, that's still, I think that can be just as impactful. I think it's it's like anything. It's like, that's the beautiful thing about cinema, is it's truly, a multi-layered kind of art. It's truly like multimedia in some ways, because you're using multiple ways of creative. You've got writing, you could have music, you've got audio, regardless, you have visuals, etc. So yeah, I mean, it can definitely be, I think, as impactful. It's just like anything else. It just, how was it done, and when is it
I can
done?
think of a film without a score, actually. The Birds. Alfred Hitchcock's film, The Birds, has no music at all. There's a little bit of source music here and there for like playing on a radio, but there's no score at all in that film, and it's perfect for that film. I mean, there are sounds, there's sound design on the soundtrack, the sounds of the birds themselves, but no music composed for the film at all. He did that a couple of times too. I think he did it in Rope as well. I don't think there's any soundtrack for that movie.
Yeah, and it makes perfect sense there, but for something like, and not
And I guess like Blair Witch Project doesn't have a soundtrack because it's supposed to be found footage, so it would be counterproductive.
that was obviously a choice that he made to not have a soundtrack. What do you think is about that movie that makes it more or less impactful with or without a soundtrack?
I think in that case, I think Hitchcock might have been embarrassed to be doing a animals attack movie, and so in order to downplay the fantastical element of that, you strip away the score for the film, and then it forces the audience to deal with it a little more realistically. So just like I said, just like a score should complement a movie like the way the costumes do, if not having a score works best for the film, I think it does in that case. Probably the best example of no score for a movie. Although, because even You mentioned No Country for Old Men. You're right. The running time of that movie contains no music at all. It does have a little bit of a score though. Carter Burwell does. There is a theme from No Country for Old Men that plays over those end credits. So even that had a little bit of music written for it, whereas The Birds, I think, has none.
I just fact checked myself because I got paranoid. And yes, the original 1932 Frankenstein, no soundtrack.
Failsafe by Sidney Lumet.
Oh,
it makes perfect sense why it wouldn't have a score, because again, you're dealing with the intensity of this sort of nuclear showdown that's happening in this movie. And yeah, I guess you could have had a melodramatic sort of like swelling strings and stabs and things like that, but I think it works really well. And what a great deliberate choice by the filmmaker not to have music there. It increases the sort of claustrophobia of the movie and of all the events that are happening in that movie. So I guess, soundtracks can exist, movies can thrive and be popular without soundtracks. It's interesting. I never thought of it this
Another
way.
soundtrack that fulfills everything you just said that contains no music is Dog Day Afternoon. That had no music in it.
All right on.
Once again, if you want to throw your audience into the headspace of your characters, strip away the fanciful score that is going to be leading emotion, I guess.
What's really interesting about that is also a Sidney Lumet movie. That and Failsafe both didn't have soundtracks.
Nobody throws away a score better than Sidney Lumet, except maybe Alfred Hitchcock.
Although 12 Angry Men did have a soundtrack. I wouldn't call it iconic, but it did have a soundtrack. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about what Father Malone was sort of railing against a little while ago, which is composed music versus curated collections. Now, curated collections, I think we can agree, is something akin to Dazed and Confused is an example of a curated collection, or like I said, Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs.
Anything by Martin Scorsese.
He's the king of the curated collection.
Of the curated collection. So just for the sake of our conversation, we're talking about curated collections like Martin Scorsese and not the Crow soundtrack.
Ooh, that's a tough,
isn't it? And this is why I have been driving myself crazy for these few weeks in this wide-ranging topic you've given us.
The definition of curated can be a little flexible for our purposes here. I've made my choice. I don't know if my choice fits in with your delineation. As important as a distinction as it probably is, I'm going to say I'm going to offer a little bit of leeway in how we define that. A curated collection is probably an unfair choice of words. I would say a song collection as opposed to a composed score. Is that a better way of defining what those mean?
No.
One of the filmmakers that planted the seeds for Scorsese's approach to soundtracks is Kenneth Anger, who used soundtracks like curated sound, basically curated songs for all of his films until, almost all. For ones like Scorpio Rising, for sure. I believe.
Would you say that Kenneth Anger's curated soundtracks are your example of the best of that particular genre?
It's pretty powerful. I mean, there's a lot of ones I would say are great. I mean, I mentioned, I think Last American Virgin would be up there. I mean, to me, the big daddy, but this also reveals my biases a little bit, is Return of the Living Dead. Because I think that soundtrack is it is, and I mean, and obviously there's a score to that movie too, so I don't know if that counts because there is instrumental music, but all of the music, whether it's the curated part of it, the score part, all of it integrates so well and really, I think, heightens the feel of that movie, which no matter what, way you want to slice and dice how you're approaching your sounds, that's the goal with any kind of audio, is you want it to enhance the proceedings and just give it that nice lush kind of boost.
Well, let's get into this then. I did ask you guys if you could come armed with an examples of your favorite film scores and soundtracks as song collections, if you will. So is this, am I to take that this Return of the Living Dead is your example of a favorite song soundtrack collection.
It's on there. I mean, this is like it gets so hard for me because there's so many ones I love. Like there's so many great ones. But as far as like non-musical curated songs, and when I say that, because obviously like you could say, well, obviously like something like Tommy or Phantom of the Paradise but those are musicals, so it's a little different. But though I will, this may be a hot take, I think I actually even prefer Elton John's version of Pinball Wizard to The Who. And I love The Who, for the record, but Elton John's cover is tight. But I'm a huge Tommy fan. I mean,
I just can't get past like the image of him in the movie with like, with the big boots, I don't know.
You can't get past that awesome image. What are you talking about right now?
Can't do it. Can't do it. I'm much happier envisioning The Who killing it at the Isle of Wight 1970, playing Tommy from beginning to end. Just nothing but the four of them. It just, a force of nature. To me, to compare that to Elton John doing his best Elton John impression, look, it's fine. I don't think the song is bad by any stretch, but to me, like the we're getting away from soundtracks a little bit, but the power. No, that's my fault. The power of The Who doing it live, I think, is still so iconic in my mind. But let's
before we delve further into esoterica, I just want to echo something that Heather said, because that soundtrack, Return of the Living Dead, is very high on my list of curated soundtracks. And that, to me, is a case where I'm actually making an exception, because I think somebody like Martin Scorsese, while he's shooting a scene, knows the song that he's putting in that scene from whatever time period it's from, whether it recontextualizes the scene or not. And that, to me, is what an actual curated soundtrack is, or at least a soundtrack kind of coordinator dealing with the director during the production of the movie, giving them choices. But I know for a fact that in the case of Return of the Living Dead, that Dan O'Bannon had no fucking idea about punk music and the punk scene when he wrote that movie and then made it. And so all of those songs were brought to him. As it turns out, it's a perfect fusion of sound and image. Like he couldn't have done better in that case. So anyway, I just agree with you, Heather. It is a fantastic curated soundtrack for a movie, and a lot of those songs, it's diegetic and non-diegetic. Some of those songs play in the movie as source music, and some of them play over scenes, and it all works wonderfully. I got a question. Here's a whole other musical genre for soundtracks. How about the film that has a composer and a band attached to it, like this weirdo hybrid like Highlander, which has a score by Michael Kamen, but songs by Queen? Where does this rank in our pantheon?
That Flash Gordon, to me, is a composed soundtrack. It's akin to...
I am not talking about Flash Gordon, sir.
You brought it up. You said
Highlander. Highlander is what I said, which is it's a hybrid of Michael Kamen's music and Queen songs.
Mm-hmm.
Like the soundtrack to Dune, which has Toto doing the music, except Brian Eno came in and did a separate song for it.
Oh, I love Eno. Yeah, Batman, Tim Burton's Batman, because you have Danny Elfman's score, but you also have
Danny Elfman's score married with those fucking songs. Yeah. What about that? Where does that fall, HP? This is your show.
The Batman thing, I think they're two totally separate soundtracks. They may appear concurrently in the movie, but there was a Elfman soundtrack and there was a Prince soundtrack. So that, to me, that's where that ends.
I've seen the future, HP, and it will be.
I've
seen the future, and it works.
Yes. I love that.
Well, here, I'll tell you my example of one of my favorite film soundtracks that is a curated collection, just to give you some insight into where my head was at with this. I chose the soundtrack to the movie Heavy Metal, adaptation of the 70s metal hurlant, and it has, to me, the soundtrack is it sort of accomplishes the brief of elevating and making the movie more interesting, but existing entirely separately of the movie if you need it to be. I mean, it's the first time I ever heard Dio with Black Sabbath doing Mob Rules, which is an absolutely incredible scene where it's the attack. It's the last episode in heavy metal. It's Tarna. It's like the attack against the citizens of that planet or whatever. And while it's not necessarily commenting on the events that are happening on screen, it absolutely conveys the vibe of there's this battle going on. No one knows what's happening. People are getting killed left and right. It's a crazy situation, and it all works. I could say the same thing about Don Felder's Heavy Metal, the song Heavy Metal, as that the bomber coming in, where it's that song playing as the bomber's under attack, and it has this real streamlined feel and feels very spacey.
HP, I knew you would pick heavy metal because you're a veteran of 1,000 psychic wars.
Oh my God, how do you look inside my soul and speak my truth, Father Below? You know I was going to bring that up.
Heather, this is why we're friends. We had a conversation very early in our friendship that we basically share a brain. So I'm not surprised.
This is true. We were hatched out of the same weird egg.
I've got a collected soundtrack, HP. Here's one. American Graffiti. It's effectively a jukebox soundtrack, right? But he wrote every scene, and you can look in his script, and he wrote the name of the song in the scene. And there could be no better punctuation in each of the moments throughout that entire movie. And it turns out it's a fucking great soundtrack of or like collection of music of the time period, like all the coolest of that cool music. Anyway, I've said my piece.
Because it works as a piece of nostalgia for that time and place, but it also, like you said, it has a way of commenting on the scenes that it's appearing in. It's very deliberately selected and curated. I think that's probably the alpha when you think about curated soundtracks is American Graffiti.
Even has Wolfman Jack as a character in the flick, the guy who's spinning those platters.
Absolutely. Heather, what do you think about song collections? What's one of your favorites?
If we're talking in like the school of something like American Graffiti, I think Paul Thomas Anderson's score for Boogie Nights.
Isn't it unusual that the song Boogie Nights is not on the soundtrack to Boogie Nights?
I know, but yet we get the amazing Dirk Diggler's rendition of "You've Got the Touch," which is in, I believe, is it G.I. Joe the movie?
Transformers.
No, Transformers. Yeah.
It's Transformers.
Stan Bush.
Oh, sorry. We're nerdier.
I love how.
Yeah.
I know. God damn. No.
Actually, he was an Optimus Prime.
Remember, Megatron dies. Remember that scene? It was horrifying.
This probably wouldn't count, but I think it's an interesting kind of hybrid because one movie was an amazing soundtrack, and it's both diegetic and non-diegetic. And it's all the same band, is the movie that Slade did in Flame, which I don't think a lot of Americans have seen, because Slade, I mean, it's
neither
you
have I.
guys should see it. It's actually really depressing. It's really good. It's a very heavy, like gritty, basically kind of like docudrama of Slade's band, but also just like how, just kind of seedy the music scene. And we're not talking your typical like rags to riches seediness where it's cocaine and orgies. No, it's like working class bands playing pubs and dealing with the mob, and I cannot. And I think that movie's been long out of print. It needs to get back in print. Slade's in Flame is excellent. The soundtrack, I mean, obviously it helps if you're a Slade fan, which I am. I wish they would have been a bigger band over here, because I think most Americans just know them for "Come On, Feel the Noise," and honestly, most Americans probably are more familiar with the Quiet Riot cover than Slade's at this point. But I mean, Slade were great.
Mama, we're all crazy now. CRAZEE.
But I mean, that, like, these kind of monkeys, Can't Swing, Cause I Love You. I mean, Slade are such a great band, and Flame is a really great use of that band, of that music, and it's very effective too. It's not just like, oh, here's a popular band, here's their music. Like, there's a point and a purpose to it. Another one that's actually kind of hitting me that I think would actually be a very good double bill with that film in a bizarre way would be Derek Jarman's Jubilee, because there's some really great punk like music in that, in this sort of dystopian world. I mean, you have like early Susie and the Banshees and Adam and the Ants. You've got Jane County, who goddess, loves Jane County. Jane County's great at everything, and that woman should be heralded from the stars to the sky. Great rock and roller. So yeah, I mean, that's the thing. There's so many films we can mention.
Well, yeah, leaning
to the point that my allergies are kicking in.
Leaning into the punk direction, a wonderful curated soundtrack, diegetic and non, for me, is the Sid and Nancy soundtrack, which features a lot of covers of songs like the Sex Pistols had done, but had a fucking phenomenal song score and just score for the film by the Pogues and Pray for Rain and Joe Strummer. That's a great one as far as I'm concerned, as far as curated collections of tune. Like they had, they had like 3 different bands basically write a song saying the name of the song is Love Kills, come up with something, and each of them did, and there we go. So,
oh my God, you know what one I can't believe we haven't mentioned, Father Malone and HP. I'm assuming you love this movie as much as I know we do, is Get Crazy.
Good Lord, yeah. I mean, is that curated so much? They wrote all those songs specifically to be performed. It's basically like a musical.
Listen, I just want to mention Get Crazy, okay?
Subject drives me so insane. It's so wide-ranging and crazy. Like we're gonna get to scores. We haven't even gotten to scores yet, and it's mind-bending. I'm so mad at you, HP.
Well, we're getting there. My honorable mention, by the way, for curated song collections is another one that I know is you probably already thought of this one. This is a bit of having its cake and eating it too, Father Malone. It's the soundtrack to The Warriors, because you have
Barry Dvorak.
Yes, well, his work is so, I keep using the word, but it's so iconic in that movie. You can't hear his synthesized, driven, moody, funky score and not think of the baseball furies running down the street with baseball bats and like murder in their eyes. It's fantastic. But you also there's some great songs in the soundtrack. You've got Echoes in My Mind by a band called Mandrill, which is this incredibly sort of mellow, funky R&B song. You've got Nowhere to Run. It's amazing.
What's his name there? Mr. Eagles.
Joe Walsh.
In the City. That's a great tune too. That's a great soundtrack.
You
can't hear that song and not think of the Warriors. I think that technically is an Eagles song, because I think I could be wrong. I thought it was on an Eagles album, but you can't hear that song and not think of the Warriors finally making it to Coney.
I will never think of the Eagles when I hear that song, ever.
Oh, hell no. No. Anything good the Eagles did, just put it on Joe. Joe Walsh is the man.
Well, some other talented people in that band too. I mean,
like Joe Walsh.
I said,
I don't really
Don
like
Felder,
the dude, but
Don Felder's fine. Actually,
Don Felder's fine. When we actually end up talking about yacht rock, one of the things that the yacht rock guys said is the best thing the Eagles ever did was break up, because them solo on their own it's kind of like it's the opposite of the greater than the sum of their parts. Basically, the parts are greater than the sum of the whole, I think, when you talk about the Eagles. But that's another topic.
Can't wait to do that episode. That's going.
We'll talk about that. But anyway, so as Father Malone said, or entreated me to get into this, let's get into the big one. Let's get into composed soundtracks. Okay, I asked you guys to come armed with one of your favorite composed soundtracks. I'm really interested to see what you guys come up with here. Heather, why don't we start with you?
Again, it's so hard for me to pick because I'm greedy and I love music, which is obviously we all do. That's why we're doing the show. But can I do two runners up before I
Absolutely.
get to my one? I'm a greedy girl.
Go for it.
Lalo Schifrin's score for Dirty Harry, I think is perfection. Love it. Give me more.
Also
of it.
on my list, Lalo Schifrin in general.
Hell
so
yes.
go to
Yes.
town.
Amen. Yeah, the man could do no wrong. The score, and I'm gonna probably mispronounce the name, but I believe the band was called Sonoya Caves for Beyond the Black Rainbow, the Panos Cosmatos film. That's a gorgeous score. Also, Acanthus score for genre launch Shiver the Vampires. Perfect. The Amon Folk Orchestra for Subspecies. I'm doing more than two runners up. I'm sorry. I digress. My number one is Mitchell Froome's score for Cafe Flush. Because I obviously I'm a huge Steven Sadian fan who directed it, and that's why I'm working on a book about his art. But one of the many great things about Steven is his use of music and working with a guy like Mitchell Froome, who on his own is a very talented musician who's worked in many different capacities. And his score for Cafe Flush is hypnotic at times, downbeat in others, jarringly haunting at other times, also weirdly catchy but very mutated, which is absolutely perfect. You could not make a Cafe Flush without that score. Like, it is such an essential part and ingredient of a film that I already consider a masterpiece and a very vital part of cinema. So yeah, Mitchell Froome's Cafe Flush.
Nice. Father Malone, dying to hear what you have to say as well.
I have so much to say. This is an almost incredibly unfair topic I think we've been saddled with, because I too am going to go through a list because it's insanity not to. How about Lawrence of Arabia by Maurice Jarre? I mentioned him earlier as put as one of the worst scores for his Ryan's Daughter score, but that one's really good. Stuart Copeland's score for Talk Radio is fucking phenomenal. Almost anything by Carter Burwell, who did the music almost all of the Coen brothers films. He is constantly innovative. My favorite of his is Miller's Crossing. However, the score is sort of copped from an original Irish traditional called The Lament for Limerick. So if I had to pick a Carter Burwell one sort of specifically, it'd be Raising Arizona. How about Giorgio Moroder showing us what a soundtrack can also be? I mean, there had been electronic soundtracks before his, but he certainly did it in a wonderful way. I'm not even thinking of the flashier 80s ones like Scarface, which is a great one, but like Midnight Express is so tense and like amazing. Like, that score makes that movie a better movie. John Barry's a really good composer, Goldfinger, like that one. You Only Live Twice. Pretty great. And that one is where the composer of the soundtrack for the film also effectively creates the song for the film, because they turn his whatever melody he's come up with, that Bond movie becomes the song. That's kind of a feat. That's pretty incredible. Anything by Bernard Herrmann is really good. So here's where the fist fight comes in, HP, because I have somebody like John Williams in my mind, because who could be better than John Williams? Just every single movie is stuck in my head. That has to be some sort of sorcery, but that doesn't make him my favorite score. The actual fight comes down to two. Jerry Goldsmith, who has composed some of my favorite music from all of my favorite movies. The score for like Gremlins, which is, you don't even realize it until like 40 minutes into the movie what that score actually is, and it's bonkers, and it's so appropriate for the movie. Anyway, I love Jerry Goldsmith, and I want to say he's my favorite composer, and that's my favorite soundtrack, but it's not. My favorite actual composer is John Carpenter.
Yes. Oh, man, I should have picked Carpenter. That's great.
Every one of his soundtracks are scores, and every one of them sounds inevitable when you hear it, married with the pictures. They're so good and propulsive. My favorite of all time is Escape from New York, where it's a combination of all of his strengths as a composer, and he even defers. He's got some Debussy that he quotes in that soundtrack. It tells the story. It's what you mentioned earlier at the beginning, HP, when you got that Star Wars soundtrack home. You could relive the movie listening to that soundtrack. And you certainly can do that with Escape from New York. You know what every single scene is, thanks to the music cues there. John Carpenter had a quote I actually have I'd like to read, if you don't mind, which is, he said, "I think of the orchestral stuff as carpet music. I lay a carpet under the scenes. It doesn't get in the way, and you're watching the scene and the music won't intrude on you. I describe my style as anti-John Williams. His style goes back to Max Steiner, where you might emphasize every action and flourish, and I came from the minimalist school." To which I would say, that's a great quote, but he's just as bombastic as John Williams. Is he crazy? The Halloween theme? Yeah, it's sort of minimal, like instrumentation wise. But John, you're fucking grabbing the viewer by the fucking throat.
Oh God, the theme for Christine, like that main piece of music.
It's beautiful.
It's so good. That's an exquisite choice.
There's, I don't know the name of the music, but in Christine, it's the scene where
is it the football scene?
Yes.
Yes.
We talked about this not too long ago, where there's something
I think I played this for you on vinyl when you were in my home.
Well, just something there's something about like the emotion of the scene, because he's basically seeing Arnie kind of making time with his girl, so to speak, or whatever. He's distracted by it, and that's when he breaks his leg. I don't know. There's something about the choices that he makes in that scene, John Carpenter, in terms of music, that I just think is amazing. I just love it.
The track we're talking about, by the way, is called Football Run / Kill Your Children.
It's great. It's because the thing of Christine is, it's a lot of the showiness of that is when Christine's radio comes on, and it's usually some kind of like old doo-wop song that is commenting on whatever Christine's going to be doing in the moment. but his score is just phenomenal. Bravo. That's a great one. I didn't even think of that. But my choices, I too had a lot of runners up, if you will. Among the runners up, the soundtrack to Blade Runner, Vangelis, phenomenal. I mean, it's nigh impossible to separate the soundtrack from the movie. They're just so inextricably linked in my mind, and each one makes the other one better as a result. Expanded my mind as to what an electronic score could be. Unrelated but similar note in my mind, the Untouchables soundtrack by Morricone.
Oh my God.
You can pick, I mean, Morricone, obviously he has this incredibly storied career, and you would think of Untouchables as a latter day work, but it is so good. Something about the way that soundtrack works in the movie. There's a jauntiness, but a darkness to it as well.
The harmonica is so menacing.
Oh man, and the scene that the sort of homage to Battleship Potemkin in the train station when all that stuff's going on, and like the sort of operatic score that he has built up around it.
Yeah, De Palma usually used Pino Donaggio for most of his movies, and if you think in any way that Ennio Morricone lapsed into sentimentalism, you have no idea, because Pino Donaggio is just like awash in the sentimental. So thank God Ennio Morricone got the gig for Untouchables, because it's again perfect marriage of film and of audio and visual.
It's just remarkable. I could keep going. I mean, I would even put the original Tron soundtrack, the Wendy Carlos Tron soundtrack, because it's so groundbreaking, because it's easy to take for granted now when you have a synth score matched up against an orchestral score, but they didn't have, there was no way to sync those two pieces up.
Yes.
They didn't have the technology to really, match. So it was, my understanding is it was an ordeal just to sync up those two halves of the score, but it works brilliantly. I mean, Wendy Carlos is a trailblazer beyond that. I mean, just in the world of electronic music, she is the name. I mean, we wouldn't have electronic music if it wasn't for Wendy Carlos.
And from a time when you had to program every one of those notes. It's not
that's the thing.
Not like flipping on the synth now.
You had to not only that, you only had there were only basically three types of sound. There was sawtooth, sine wave or square wave, and white noise. And the keyboards were all monophonic. In other words, you couldn't play a chord, an 8-note chord. You had to play every note one at a time, record it, play it back, play along with it, multi-track, it's just, that's a story for another episode, clearly.
The reason I bring it up is to sneak back around and praise my choice again, because John Carpenter had to do the same thing.
I can't say this is my favorite soundtrack of all time, but this is certainly one of my favorite soundtracks. Is the soundtrack to the original movie Rocky by Bill Conti. And part of the reason for that, it's I recognize that it's a much more popular choice, but it's impossible. It's one of the most identified themes when you think of Gonna Fly Now. It's a cliche now. When you have a comedy routine about somebody training for a fight or doing some sort of physical activity, there was a time when they would cue up Gonna Fly Now, because it was so, the training montage became a thing with Rocky. But beyond the obvious sort of, like I said, mass market appeal of that song, the soundtrack itself, I think, doesn't get a lot of credit for what it does, which is what it does is it really elevates the original story into something that is both incredibly epic but also like painstakingly human sized. Because if you listen, there's a lot of bombastic songs like Gonna Fly Now, Going the Distance, and all this stuff. But then there's like softer pieces that kind of underscore the human sort of emotions around this whole movie. It's really a movie about, flawed people kind of falling into each other's orbit and, making each other better as a result.
You know what my favorite track in that is, HP?
What's that?
Take Her to the Zoo.
Hey, Rob.
What?
Remember what I told you?
What'd you tell me?
Take her to the zoo.
That's a little.
Take her to the
Take her to the
zoo.
No, it's so. I mean, I can't say much about Bill Conti's work before and after. The thing I know him most from, frankly, is the fact that he was the band leader for the Oscars for like 50 years or something. Because they would always go, "Hey, there's the maestro, Bill Conti, whatever." And I think he did the soundtrack for The Karate Kid. I'm sure I'm missing a lot that he did, but
he's prolific.
He's very prolific. But Rocky it's really almost a cliche at this point, but it is so. Again, it's one of those soundtracks you can put it on the record player, as I did as a child, and you hear this music, and it takes you instantly.
Man. The horns.
The fanfare, the Rocky fanfare. If you're in it gives me chills even now to listen to it because it is so grandiose. He lifted the story and made it bigger and larger than life. And I think that's part of what carried through all of the Rocky movies to follow. They became larger than life.
Those movies eventually lived up to that score.
Absolutely. That's exactly right. It's hard to.
That score is actually not about an everyman. It's about the greater man he'll be.
Right. Exactly. And that's why again, it's impossible for us to give our final definitive, this is my favorite soundtrack, but that is one of many that are in my orbit constantly. So
HP.
Yes.
If you would allow me to hijack a segment here based on your choice. Gonna Fly Now represents the rare hybrid of song, score, popular music in that track, the main title theme, became a #1 hit in May of 1977, right? Mm-hmm. So here are some other movie soundtrack scores that became hits. Unchained, the soundtrack to Unchained by Les Baxter, Unchained Melody, April 9th, 1955, #1. Man with the Golden Arm, main soundtrack by Elmer Bernstein, #14. That was February 13th, 1956. The Proud One, the soundtrack to that by Lionel Newman of the Newmans. He got to #39. The Apartment by Adolf Deutsch got to #10. Exodus, theme from Exodus. 1960, baby. Pink Panther theme.
Mancini.
Got to only #31. That shocks me.
That's unbelievable. That
next big movie soundtrack to chart was Jaws, theme from Jaws. Got to #34. Okay. Then Rocky blows it all wide and goes to #1 in 77. Later in 77, #10 in August, Star Wars theme by John Williams. And then the following year, January 21st, #13 on the charts, Close Encounters theme by John Williams, which is the last major movie score to chart in the Billboard charts anyway.
That's actually pretty shocking to think. I mean, did you say 1977? Was that when that last 1978? No film scores. I mean, a lot of song collections have charted, but with no film scores.
I mean, you could say Axel F. I guess that counts. But like, I don't want to count like "Wind Beneath My Wings." You know, we're talking about like a score.
Yeah. No. This is something that is composed and performed by an orchestra. And it surprises me.
Oh, you know what? What am I talking about? The Vangelis score for Chariots of Fire had to chart somewhere very high.
Oh, it had to.
Yeah.
It had to. Yeah, because that was omnipresent at that point.
But name another one since, can you? No.
So for the final spin, I'm going to ask the question: what would the soundtrack to your life be called, and who would be the preferred composer? And I'm going to ask you first, Father Malone.
Oh, I don't know what the title would be, because that presupposes that there'd be a movie. Or is it one of these situations like where the soundtrack has a separate title than the movie? Like the soundtrack to The Last Temptation of Christ by Peter Gabriel is actually called Passion. So is it?
Yes.
Oh, that's a great soundtrack.
Oh my God, so fantastic. There you go. There's a great score. Good Lord.
So let me thank you for clarifying. Let's put it this way. The movie of your life, what's it called, and who's going to compose the soundtrack?
It's going to be called Background Player.
Okay.
Ooh, that's a good memoir title too.
I actually really
do
like that.
That's very literary.
I think that might be better than mine. Yeah.
And if I get to choose the composer from the soundtrack of my life, out of left field, I'm going to choose Mark Mothersbaugh.
Yes.
Ooh, I was tempted to go for Mark Mothersbaugh, but I'm glad you picked him.
I mean, he's not my favorite composer, but he's pretty fucking close, you know? He has such a great background in just the world of music, and all of his scores are really rock solid and good. And like Elfman gets all the attention, but Mothersbaugh's really like right on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's an excellent choice.
That's a good one. That's a very good choice. All right, Heather, I'm dying to hear what you have to say on the subject.
The title was the hardest part for me, to be honest, because I would never, just the thought, even as a hypothetical thing, like a movie on my life gives me, I'm like, oh no, like, you know, but if we're playing hypotheticals, the title would have to be Mondo Pazzo.
Okay.
Because that was not just because that title was the genesis of the inspiration of me taking on Mondo as a name back when I saw the trailer for it on Real Wild Cinema as a teenager. And it's a great trailer and a great sort of bombastic narration. But the composer, I have to pick the one and only, my man, Mort Garson. And so somebody might be listening like, Heather.
Oh, no, it's okay. I was going to say Mort Garson as well. Again, this is all right. I should have said somebody living, because I don't believe Mort Garson is with us anymore. No, he's not.
This is my fucking movie. I will practice the dark arts of necromancy, sir. To get.
It's a good one. It's a good one. I like I said, I had him typed into my sheet. And then I said, no, he's dead. I couldn't do that.
I missed the living part. If I had to pick a living one,
it's my fault. I didn't stick with it.
Well, then I'm sticking with Mort Garson, babies.
No, that's great. I think we will get a chance to talk about The Wizard of Iz at some point, hopefully soon, and we will.
Well, he also did a film soundtrack. He, to my knowledge, he's at least contributed to 2 films. The better known one is Son of Blob, which that title track is pure fire. But it also, there's a really obscure movie, and the soundtrack's finally in print, though the movie is not, called Didn't You Hear? And
we will dig into Mort Garson, probably to Father Malone's eternal chagrin, because we're just going to go crazy talking about how much we love the guy. This was not easy. The title it's not as good as yours or Father Malone's. My title was just going to be something to the effect of Fanfare for the Exceedingly Common Man. And
I love that. I love that.
I couldn't think of anything else. Mm-hmm. And I think my composer, although he's not a composer in the vein of somebody like a John Williams, but I would like to see what this person would do with the soundtrack of my life. That person is Christopher Guest of This is Spinal Tap, Guffman fame. I think he's a very, very good musician. I think in his movies, especially I'm thinking of A Mighty Wind, he's able to write to a specific genre or period and make it really work, but also make it really interesting and funny, and commenting on the events of the movie, in addition to being very authentic.
I'd love to hear a dramatic score by Christopher Guest, honestly.
I don't know why he doesn't, because he's a very good musician. I just don't, and I've read articles over the years, this is just a complete side note, that he does perform and does like Celtic music, I think. He plays a lot of mandolin, he does side projects with different people, but to my knowledge, I've never come across these as, bodies of work that you can purchase, like like something like a Bacon Brothers. There's no Christopher Guest collection that I can get outside of his movie soundtracks or whatever Spinal Tap project they're doing to keep the copyright, enforced. So I don't know. I'd like to see what he could do with it.
That is proof that there is no God, that the Bacon Brothers are readily available and the Christopher Guest stylings of Celtic music. Foco, Roco, Bloco, Noco.
And with that, I think there is no better sentiment to wrap up the show on. I love that. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up here. We're going to give some plugs. Father Malone, why don't you tell the folks where they can hear you?
You can head over to weirdingwaymedia.com. It's probably where you heard this, where you can hear this show. And I do a whole bunch of other shows like Astounding Tales of the Public Domain. Those are enhanced audio performances of classic sci-fi, or Dark Destinations. It's a half-hour radio drama I write and produce. Or Midnight Viewing, the Night Gallery podcast, where I talk about the Night Gallery television series. weirdingwaymedia.com.
And Heather, where can we find you?
You can always find me over at my website, which is mondoheather.com. I also have a Patreon. So if you'd like, if you're able to support, if you can't, no worries. But if you're able to, you can check out my fun articles, little sundry supplementals, occasionally videos, and all kinds of just weird, Mondo Heather or Mondo Pazzo esoterica too.
That's great. As for myself, you can also find me in the all over the Weirding Way network as well. I am the co-host of the Wolf and Raisin Banachek podcast with Father Malone. We also co-host the Night Mr. Walters Taxi podcast. I've done some guest spots here and there on the Culture Cast, so look for me there. And so again, Weirding Way Media, go check it out. So thank you both very much. Another wonderful discussion here. Really, really good, some good stuff. I look forward to the next edition of the movie soundtrack discussion. But anyhow, for myself, for Heather, and for Father Malone, this is Noise Junkies. Thank you very much for listening.
Have you ever wanted to dive deeper into the horror movies you love? Beyond the Blood is a horror podcast for fans who want more than just surface level screams. We do deep dives into the movies that shaped us, digging into director commentaries, behind the scenes stories, deleted scenes, and the special features that most people skip. Each episode is a love letter to the genre. We break down how these films were made, the creative risks that paid off or didn't, and the lasting impact they've had on the genre as a whole. From 70s slashers to modern nightmares, we celebrate the craft, chaos, and characters that keep us coming back. If you're the kind of fan who rewatches movies with the commentary on, or you simply grew up in the video store horror aisle, the Beyond the Blood podcast was made for you. New episodes every single week. Subscribe, and let's dig deep. Welcome to the Beyond the Blood podcast.